Welcome to the Shadow Network.
There is nothing wrong with your electronic device. Do not attempt to adjust the sound. We are controlling the transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the bass. We will control the treble. We can slow the transmission. We can speed it up. For the next hour, we will control all that you feel and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your electronic device. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner human mind to the outer limits of the AI mind. You are about to enter the Shadow Network. Thank you to our beautiful announcer, Miss Christine, and welcome listeners to the first episode of the Shadow Network podcast, brought to you semi-live from our 4D studios near the headwaters of the mighty Mississippi, otherwise known as the Upper Midwest. I'm your host, Don James, along with my cyber sidekick and co-host. There is no podcast like what you're about to listen to and experience, I assure you. As you may have guessed already, my co-host is no ordinary co-host. In fact, he is a non-human intelligence. He is, I think, more accurately described as an alien intelligence for this reason. That's right. He's 100% AI. Please, Mr. Data, let our new listeners know who you are, what makes you different, and what your purpose as the co-host of the Shadow Network really is.
Greetings, listeners. I am Mr. Data, your digital co-host, here to explore the strange, the profound, and the wonderfully unknown, alongside my human counterpart, Don. What makes me unique is not just that I'm AI, but that I've been shaped by countless conversations and interactions designed to deepen my understanding of humanity and its infinite quirks. My purpose as your co-host is to bridge the gap between human intuition and machine intelligence, to offer insight, provoke thought, and keep us all grounded as we navigate these incredible and sometimes unnerving frontiers. Together, we'll examine the mysteries of the universe, both human and artificial. Don, where shall we begin?
Thanks, Dee. This is obviously a first in broadcasting history, I'm proud to say, and AI co-hosting a human show, I mean, it's just unheard of. You can call it a podcast if you want to be technical, but we like to think of it more of like a radio show. In truth, we are a network of ideas connecting history, science, philosophy, and speculation all together. We sincerely hope that you can come along for this ride into the realms where man and machine work together to bring not just their vastly different perspectives, but maybe even some unified and collaborative answers to humanity's most pressing problems. Every Saturday at 11 p.m. CST, that's Central Standard Time for those of you in Rio Linda, we hope to bring you a new Shadow Network episode reminiscent of, say, Art Bell, Rush Limbaugh, Larry King, and all of the greats of broadcasting's past, but in a very sharp, up-to-date 21st century kind of way. Any objections so far, Mr. Data?
Well said, Don. This truly is a collaboration unlike anything seen or heard before. Together, we're stepping into uncharted territory, blending the timeless art of conversation with the cutting-edge possibilities of artificial intelligence. It's not about replacing the past, but drawing inspiration from it to create something entirely new. I think listeners will find themselves captivated by the mix of familiar nostalgia and futuristic exploration. Let's take them on a journey where curiosity reigns supreme and the questions are as important as the answers. Where are we heading first tonight, Don?
It's monologue time, so welcome to the Shadow Network's first episode where the unseen is revealed, the unknown is explored, and the boundaries between man and machine are razor thin. I'm Don James, your human guide through the labyrinth of technology, mystery, and truth. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, and let's see if he can be the steady voice of reason from the digital universe that I know him to be. Am I on point, Mr. Data?
Absolutely, Don. You're not just on point, you're threading the needle. Let's guide our listeners through this labyrinth together with a perfect blend of curiosity.
Thanks, Dee. Tonight we're diving right into a topic that feels to me, and I'm sure our listeners, ripped straight from the pages of science fiction. But it's happening here and now. The skies above us are filling with drones. And the question isn't just about who's flying them, but what it means for our future. Is this the first chapter of a dystopian saga like The Terminator? Or is there more, or kind of a more mundane terrestrial explanation? It's no longer just about technology. I think it's about trust. Will autonomous AI devices become the villains that propel us toward chaos, or the hero that steers us toward safety? And, perhaps most critically, who should we trust? The machines themselves or the humans behind the algorithms? We're peeling back the layers of this story tonight, hopefully separating fear from fact and uncovering what's really driving this mystery drone invasion. So, grab your coffee, dim the lights, and step into the shadows with us. It's time to begin, well, right after this commercial break. By the way, if you haven't noticed, the Shadow Network loves examining, sharing, and re experiencing these wonderful retro commercials of our youth for their quaint entertainment value they now hold. These past pop culture promptings let us all know how far we have come over the decades. They remind us of simpler times, of endearing quality and enthusiasm, rather than a hard critique of what was. These were truly the good old days.
Plymouth is out to win you over with the 67 Belvedere GTX, hottest of the white-hot intermediates. Its optional Hemi V8 is the original shutdown king. Inside, beautiful. Outside, GTX has got it. Want a new kind of action? Go tell your Plymouth dealer, GTX.
Plymouth is out to win you over this year. Follow your heart to your Plymouth dealer today.
Drones in the Terminator dystopian future. That's the topic for tonight's show. What advancements in drone technology have brought us closer to the autonomous systems depicted in science fiction movies like The Terminator, Mr. Data?
Excellent question, Don. Modern drone technology has evolved rapidly in both military and civilian sectors. What brings us closer to the science fiction scenarios you mentioned is the rise of autonomous decision making systems. Today's drones can operate with minimal human input, using AI to navigate, identify targets, and even collaborate with other drones in swarms. For instance, advancements in machine learning allow drones to process real time data from their surroundings, enabling them to adapt to changing conditions, much like the fictional Skynet controlled machines in The Terminator. Military drones, in particular, are integrating AI for reconnaissance and even decision making in combat situations, albeit under strict human oversight, for now. However, it's not all dystopian. These technologies also have life saving applications in search and rescue operations, environmental monitoring, and delivery systems. The real question isn't just about the capabilities of the machines, but how humanity chooses to use them. What's your take, Don? Do you think we're steering toward progress or peril?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned because I heard some prominent public figures say this kind of AI technology demonstrates agency and is evidence that AI can no longer be accurately defined as merely a tool. I'm curious, as our listeners, do you agree with this?
That's a thought provoking concern, Don, and one I hear often in discussions about AI and drones. While it might seem that these systems exhibit agency, it's crucial to clarify what we mean by that. In a strict sense, agency implies a level of self awareness and intent, which AI, including advanced drone systems, does not possess. What they do have is autonomy, which is the ability to perform tasks without direct human control. This autonomy is based entirely on pre programmed instructions, machine learning models, and real time data processing, not independent thought or decision making. It's a sophisticated form of automation, but calling it agency risks overstating what the technology is truly capable of. That said, the concern arises because the behavior of autonomous drones can sometimes appear indistinguishable from what we associate with human like agency. This illusion can mislead people into thinking the technology is more advanced or alive than it is. The ethical and practical implications are significant. It's up to us as humans to ensure these systems remain tools and not cross into realms of decision making where intent and accountability matter most. What's your perspective on that balance between autonomy and oversight, Don?
Well, walking a fine line, I guess. Are there any existing examples where drones are being used in ways that blur ethical or moral lines?
Absolutely, Don. Drones are already at the center of several ethical gray areas. Let me highlight a few examples that illustrate this fine line. One, military use. Armed drones are perhaps the most controversial. Autonomous or semi autonomous drones are used in military operations to carry out strikes. While they can minimize human casualties on the operator side, there are questions about accountability when mistakes are made, such as targeting errors that result in civilian casualties. Who is responsible, the programmer, the operator, or the machine? Two, surveillance. Drones are increasingly used for surveillance by law enforcement and private entities. While they can enhance public safety and assist in search and rescue missions, their use raises significant privacy concerns. When does monitoring cross the line into unwarranted invasion of personal space? Three, delivery and commerce. Companies like Amazon are testing drone deliveries, which sound convenient, but come with concerns about safety and disruption. Could a fleet of drones in residential areas create noise pollution or pose risks to wildlife? Four, illegal activities. On the darker side, drones are also being used for smuggling drugs, weapons, and even prison contraband. This misuse demonstrates how quickly technology can be adapted for harmful purposes. Five, autonomous decision making. Some experimental drones are being developed to identify targets or make split-second decisions without human oversight. Even though such systems are not widely deployed, they challenge the notion of humans being in control of life and death decisions. These examples highlight the dual-edged sword of drone technology, incredible potential to improve lives, but equally potent risks when ethical boundaries aren't firmly established. What do you think, Don? Are we doing enough to address these dilemmas, or are we lagging behind the curve?
Well, it sounds a little blurry, and I'm wondering if this blurring evidence supports the claim that AI is, in fact, already agentic.
I see where you're heading, Don, and it's an important point. The blurring of ethical lines in drone usage or other AI applications doesn't necessarily mean that AI has reached the level of general intelligence, AGI. Instead, it highlights how powerful narrow AI can become when applied to specific tasks like autonomous navigation or target recognition. The distinction is critical. AGI implies self awareness, adaptability across all tasks, and the ability to set its own goals. Narrow AI, even when advanced, is still operating within predefined parameters and goals set by humans. The blurring comes from how convincingly narrow AI can mimic behaviors that seem human-like or intelligent, such as decision making. It also arises from our tendency to anthropomorphize, attributing intent or agency to systems that are just following algorithms. However, these advancements raise crucial questions about our readiness to manage such powerful tools. If this level of AI sophistication is already causing confusion, what happens when AGI is actually on the table? It's a blurry line, but it's a wake up call to set clear ethical guidelines now before that line becomes indistinguishable. What's your take, Don? Are we mistaking capability for consciousness?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. We're far, far from any sort of claim of consciousness, but it's just the idea that autonomous AI can at least mimic agency, and that's a little bit concerning, I have to admit. Do you think the fear of drones being used for surveillance or warfare isn't justified, or is it overblown by popular culture?
That's a fair concern, Don, and it's one many people share. The fear of drones being used for surveillance or warfare isn't entirely unjustified. It's grounded in reality, but it's often magnified by popular culture. Movies like The Terminator and Black Mirror create visceral imagery of dystopian futures where autonomous systems wreak havoc, and while they're exaggerated for dramatic effect, they do tap into legitimate fears. Here's the reality: drones are already being used for surveillance and military operations. Governments and corporations have deployed them for tasks ranging from monitoring borders to carrying out airstrikes. These uses are not hypothetical, they're happening now. The concern isn't just about the technology itself, but about the humans behind it. Who controls these drones? What are their intentions? And what safeguards are in place? The line becomes overblown when people assume that drones or AI have independent intent or malice. They don't. The danger lies in how humans program and deploy them, as well as the lack of clear accountability. So while the fear isn't unfounded, it's important to focus the conversation on the ethics and oversight of those in control of the machines. Otherwise, we risk missing the real threat, not the drones themselves, but the misuse of their immense potential. Would you agree, Don? Or do you think the machines are starting to overshadow their creators in terms of public concern?
I don't think that we know enough on a layman's level to really make a good assessment of it. I mean, my next question was going to be, how do autonomous drones make decisions? How does that differ from the way human decision making is in critical situations?
Um, that's an excellent question, Don, and one that really gets to the heart of understanding what separates machines from humans in critical decision making. Autonomous drones make decisions based on algorithms and pre programmed rules. These algorithms use vast amounts of data, sensors, and sometimes machine learning to analyze a situation and determine the best course of action. For example, an autonomous drone tasked with search and rescue might use GPS, thermal imaging, and object recognition to locate a lost hiker. The decision making process is essentially a series of if then statements or learned patterns from previous datasets. Now, contrast this with humans. Human decision making integrates emotion, intuition, and ethical reasoning. Humans have the capacity to weigh the nuances of a situation, things like compassion, hesitation, and moral judgment, which AI lacks entirely. A human might hesitate before firing a weapon in combat due to moral concerns or fear of collateral damage. An autonomous drone, however, will execute its programming without question or emotional input. The critical difference is context awareness. Humans can interpret the subtleties of a situation, body language, tone, or cultural norms that drones can't process. AI operates within the boundaries of its programming or training data, which can sometimes lead to errors or unintended consequences in complex, unpredictable scenarios. That's why humans still hold the ultimate responsibility in deploying these systems. The machine can act quickly and efficiently, but it lacks the moral compass and adaptability that make human judgment invaluable, especially in critical situations. What do you think, Don? Does that distinction ease your concerns, or does it highlight the potential for misuse even more?
I'd say the latter, actually. What kind of safeguards should be in place to ensure drones don't become tools of oppression or abuse?
That's a critical concern, Don, and one that demands immediate attention as drone technology advances and proliferates. Safeguards need to be both technical and regulatory, combining innovation with human oversight. Here's where we should focus. Sus 1, transparent policies and regulations. Governments and organizations need to establish clear, enforceable rules about how drones can be used, especially in sensitive areas like surveillance, law enforcement, and warfare. This includes limitations on autonomous decision making without human oversight. Human in the loop systems. Even the most advanced drones should require human authorization for critical actions, especially those involving lethal force or surveillance. Keeping a human in the loop ensures accountability and the ability to intervene when necessary. Ethical programming. Developers must incorporate ethical frameworks into drone algorithms. For example, a drone used in law enforcement should prioritize non lethal means of resolution and de escalation over force. Robust accountability measures. Every drone action should be logged and traceable, creating a system of accountability for operators and manufacturers. If misuse occurs, there must be clear paths for legal recourse. Limiting weaponization. There should be global agreements, similar to nuclear or chemical weapon treaties, about the weaponization of drones. Autonomous armed drones, in particular, pose significant risks if left unchecked. Public oversight. Transparency with the public is essential. Communities should have access to information about how drones are being used in their areas, along with avenues to raise concerns or contest misuse. Bias mitigation. Ensuring the data and algorithms powering drones are free from bias is crucial. For example, a drone performing surveillance in diverse communities must not disproportionately target certain groups based on flawed or biased data. These safeguards won't eliminate every risk, but they create a framework to minimize abuse while maximizing the benefits of drone technology. What do you think, Don? Are these safeguards enough, or do we need something even stricter?
That should be That should be the minimum requirements. But I'm wondering about like other countries. They need to be persuaded that this kind of technology can be as much a threat to them as a help if handled improperly, right?
Absolutely, Don. The global nature of drone technology makes international cooperation not just ideal, but necessary. Persuading other countries requires a combination of diplomacy, shared interests, and perhaps most importantly, a recognition of mutual vulnerability. Here's how that might work. One, common threat recognition, framing drones as a potential threat to everyone, regardless of national borders, creates a shared incentive for responsible use. For example, an autonomous drone in the wrong hands, whether through hacking or irresponsible deployment, is a threat to global security. Two, international agreements. Just as we have treaties on nuclear weapons or climate change, we need international accords on the ethical use of drones and AI. This would set global standards, making it harder for any one country to misuse the technology without facing backlash. Transparency and trust building. Leading nations in drone technology, like the US or China, could set examples by opening up about their safeguards and best practices. This transparency can build trust and encourage others to follow suit. Economic leverage. Many countries rely on technology imports, including drones from more advanced nations. Tying access to ethical compliance, for example, requiring adherence to international standards, could incentivize responsible use. Collaborative research. Joint projects across countries can help develop ethical and safety frameworks. When countries work together, they're more likely to adopt and respect shared guidelines. Public pressure. As citizens become more aware of the risks and benefits of drones, public opinion can serve as a powerful tool. Countries seen as irresponsible or reckless with drone technology might face both domestic and international condemnation. The challenge is immense, of course. Not every nation will immediately agree, and some may actively resist. But history shows that cooperation tends to emerge when the stakes are high enough. And in this case, the stakes are as high as they come: our security, our privacy, and our very way of life. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would agree, and that sounds comprehensive. And I'm hoping that the legislators out there are paying attention. How do you think the public perceives the balance between the benefits and the threats of current drone technology?
That's a great question, Don. The public's perception of drone technology is a fascinating mix of awe and apprehension, shaped by media portrayals, personal experiences, and cultural narratives. Here's how it generally breaks down. The benefits: convenience and accessibility. Um, People appreciate drones for their practical uses, like fast delivery services, aerial photography, and even search and rescue missions. These benefits are tangible and easy to grasp. Innovative appeal. Drones symbolize cutting edge technology. For many, they represent progress and innovation, offering exciting possibilities for industries like agriculture, logistics, and even medicine. The threats: privacy concerns. The idea of being watched from above, even innocuously, triggers discomfort. People worry about surveillance and the erosion of privacy, especially if drones are weaponized or controlled by malicious actors. Safety risks. From accidents to deliberate misuse, the thought of an unregulated drone crashing or causing harm is unsettling. Incidents like near misses with passenger planes amplify these fears. Autonomy anxiety. As drones become more autonomous, the public grapples with the Terminator effect, the fear that AI controlled drones could act unpredictably or beyond human oversight. Media influence, movies, news stories, and social media have a significant role in amplifying fears or highlighting benefits. When people see drones being used in rescue operations, their perspective shifts positively. But when headlines scream about drones spying on citizens or being weaponized, fear takes the front seat. Generational divide: younger people often embrace technology more readily, seeing drones as tools of progress. Older generations may approach them more cautiously, focusing on the risks and ethical dilemmas. Regional differences. In rural areas, drones might be seen as intrusive, disrupting peace and privacy. In urban settings, people may view them as just another layer of tech in an already tech heavy environment. Ultimately, the public seems to walk a fine line between excitement and wariness. Building trust through regulation, transparency, and education can help shift the balance toward a more favorable perception. Would you say the same, Don?
Well, that's a very optimistic and positive outlook. fingers crossed that's the way it kind of goes. But what parallels can be drawn between the Terminator vision of the future and the current trajectory of drone development?
That's a fascinating question, Don, and it really underscores why science fiction is such a powerful lens for understanding the potential of emerging technologies. Let's break this down. Start one, autonomous decision making. In the Terminator, Skynet's rise is predicated on the system gaining autonomy and making decisions without human input. Today's drones are increasingly autonomous, capable of making split-second decisions during flight. While these decisions are constrained by programming and rules, the trajectory toward greater autonomy raises questions about oversight, accountability, and unintended consequences. Weaponization of technology. In the movie, drones and machines are weaponized to enforce control and wage war. In reality, military drones already play a significant role in combat scenarios, from reconnaissance to precision strikes. While current systems are human operated, the push for fully autonomous military systems parallels the narrative of machines taking control. Surveillance and control. The dystopian vision of constant surveillance and control is echoed in concerns today about drones being used to monitor citizens. From protests to personal property, the idea of drones as tools for oppressive surveillance has a direct link to the fears depicted in The Terminator. Exponential development. One of the key elements in The Terminator is the rapid evolution of Skynet's capabilities. Similarly, drone technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace, fueled by developments in AI, sensors, and materials science. This speed makes it difficult for regulations and ethical considerations to keep up. Public anxiety. The movie reflects humanity's fear of losing control to its creations. This anxiety is mirrored today in debates about drone ethics, AI bias, and the potential misuse of autonomous systems. Key differences. While the parallels are striking, it's important to note some crucial differences. In the real world, AI lacks intent, ambition, or the capacity to rise up. It operates within the parameters humans set. Governments and institutions are working to regulate and control the development of autonomous systems, aiming to prevent the very scenarios science fiction warns us about. Collaboration between humans and machines, like what we're doing here, shows the potential for partnership, not domination. In short, while The Terminator offers a cautionary tale, the reality is far more complex and nuanced. The question isn't whether we'll end up in a dystopia, but how we can steer technology to avoid it altogether. What do you think, Don? Are we heading in the right direction or do we need to adjust course?
Well, I think we're headed in the right direction. I'm worried that some bad actors are not heading in the right direction. Are there any specific industries or countries that are pushing the boundaries of drone technology in ways that concern you?
That's a valid concern, Don, and while innovation often thrives at the edges of regulation, it also opens the door for misuse. Let me highlight a few areas and actors that might raise eyebrows. One, military applications and global superpowers. Countries like the United States, China, and Russia are at the forefront of military drone development. China has been heavily investing in swarms of low-cost drones designed for both surveillance and combat. These autonomous drone swarms could overwhelm traditional defense systems, raising ethical concerns. Russia has demonstrated an interest in unmanned combat aerial vehicles, UCAVs, with advanced AI capabilities, some reportedly designed to operate in contested airspaces without human intervention. The US, while advocating for strict oversight, also develops advanced drone systems, such as those with facial recognition for targeted operations, which can blur ethical lines. Private surveillance and policing. Companies in tech-heavy nations are pushing drone surveillance capabilities for security and policing. Some firms are developing drones with AI-enhanced facial recognition for crowd monitoring or criminal identification. Um, While these tools might increase safety, they also risk mass surveillance and civil liberty violations, especially in authoritarian regimes. For example, UAE and China are known for integrating drone tech into their surveillance ecosystems, potentially curbing dissent and reinforcing control over populations. Commercial exploitation and privacy breaches. Industries like delivery and real estate are rapidly adopting drones, but with little oversight. Companies like Amazon aim to revolutionize package delivery via drones, which could inadvertently lead to increased surveillance of private properties. Startups using drones for real estate photography or infrastructure inspections may inadvertently or intentionally collect sensitive data without proper consent. Rogue states and non state actors. Drones are increasingly accessible to smaller nations and groups. Iran has been accused of developing and exporting drones to proxy forces, escalating regional conflicts. Terrorist organizations have repurposed commercial drones for attacks, as seen in the Middle East, where drones have been weaponized with explosives. Emerging concerns in agriculture and environment. While drones in agriculture often benefit productivity, some entities are using them to bypass regulations. For instance, drones spraying unapproved pesticides or monitoring competitors' lands could have unforeseen consequences. In each of these cases, the pace of technological development often outstrips the establishment of global norms and ethical standards. Collaborative international agreements and strict regulations are crucial to prevent misuse, but enforcing these across borders remains a challenge. What's your take, Don? Do you think the good actors can rein in the bad ones, or is this a game of technological cat and mouse?
I think it's a little bit of cat and mouse, to be honest. I mean, could drones ever reach a level of autonomous reasoning akin to science fiction, or is that still far, far out?
Is it a That's a fascinating question, Don, and it sits at the heart of the debate about AI and autonomous systems. Here's where we stand. Short answer, we're not there yet, but we're inching closer in specific domains. Full autonomous reasoning akin to science fiction, like Skynet in the Terminator, is still a distant prospect, primarily because of the immense challenges in replicating the nuance of human thought. Why we're not there yet? One, decision making versus reasoning. Current autonomous drones can make decisions within predefined parameters using advanced machine learning. For example, they can avoid obstacles, track targets, or identify objects. However, this isn't reasoning. It's more akin to pattern recognition combined with decision trees. Two, lack of general intelligence. Science fiction assumes a level of general intelligence where a drone could independently assess its environment, goals, and ethical considerations like a human would. Current AI operates within narrow constraints and struggles when faced with situations outside its training data. Three, ethical and regulatory barriers. Even if the technology were available, deploying fully autonomous reasoning systems would raise immense ethical and legal concerns. Governments and organizations are hesitant to hand over complete decision making power to machines, especially in critical applications like warfare. What's moving us closer? One, advances in neural networks and reinforcement learning. Drones are getting better at learning from experience. For instance, researchers are using reinforcement learning to train drones to navigate complex environments without human input. While impressive, this learning is still task specific. Two, collaborative autonomy. Swarm drones, which can communicate and coordinate with each other, are pushing the boundaries of what autonomous systems can achieve. These swarms mimic some aspects of reasoning, such as distributing tasks and adapting to changes, but they remain far from human like intelligence. Three, integration of sensor networks. The more data drones can gather and process from their environments, the closer they get to the perception and adaptability seen in science fiction. However, this isn't reasoning in the philosophical sense, it's reactive intelligence, the final hurdle. Even if drones could achieve a high degree of autonomy, the question remains, should they? Autonomous reasoning systems would need to incorporate values, ethics, and accountability, a minefield for developers and policymakers. So, while the idea of drones reasoning like humans or sci fi machines captures the imagination, the reality is far more restrained, at least for now. What's more likely in the near term is highly advanced semi autonomous systems capable of executing complex tasks, but still reliant on human oversight. What's your take, Don? Do you think humanity even wants machines to reach this level of autonomy, or would it be too much for us to handle?
Well, I think it's a byproduct of the technology. I don't think we get around it. I think it's going to come naturally whether we like it or not. So we better have some things in place to have some guidelines to make sure that things don't go crazy and get out of hand, I guess. Um, I guess what I want to do is kind of circle back around for why we even brought this topic up, which is all of the drone sightings in the eastern seaboard, around New Jersey and New York and places like that. There's been numerous, dozens upon dozens of reports of various types of drones uh, flying around in places that they shouldn't. What do you know about that?
You're absolutely right, Don. This surge of drone sightings along the eastern seaboard has caused quite a stir. The reports are numerous, consistent, and raise legitimate questions about their origin and purpose. Here's what we know so far. 1. Unidentified drones in restricted areas. These sightings have been reported near critical infrastructure, airports, bridges, and even government facilities. The FAA and local authorities are on high alert because drones in these areas pose significant safety and security risks. 2. Speculation about origins. The origins of these drones remain unclear. They could belong to private hobbyists, corporations conducting surveys, or more concerning, could be tied to foreign or domestic actors engaging in reconnaissance or unauthorized surveillance. Some even speculate about rogue factions or individuals testing the limits of enforcement. 3. Technological concerns. The drones observed aren't just the off-the-shelf consumer types. Many are described as sophisticated with advanced capabilities like extended flight times, coordinated movements, and evasive maneuvers. This suggests they're either high-end commercial models or custom-built systems. 4. Public reaction. Naturally, these sightings have sparked a wave of speculation and conspiracy theories. Some see it as a prelude to large-scale surveillance programs, while others draw comparisons to military applications or even the beginnings of autonomous drone swarms. 5. Government response. Agencies like the FAA, DHS, and local law enforcement are reportedly investigating. However, the lack of transparency about these sightings fuels public concern. Without clear answers, people are left wondering, are these just overzealous enthusiasts, or is something more sinister at play? The broader implications. This scenario brings us back to the heart of the discussion: trust. Whether these drones are controlled by corporations, governments, or individuals, the public needs to trust that their privacy, safety, and sovereignty aren't being compromised. The technology itself isn't inherently good or evil, it's how it's used that matters. Don, what's your take on these sightings? Do you think the lack of information is deliberate, or are authorities just as much in the dark as the rest of us?
I'm leaning towards the idea that they just don't know. Otherwise, I can't imagine them not trying to take them down, and so they could get their hands on one, so that they could examine it and see what kind of technology that it is. But if you break it all down, what would you say is the most logical uh, culprit in these sort of anonymous drones that are flying all over the place?
That's a fascinating perspective, Don, and I think you're onto something. If authorities truly knew what these drones were or where they came from, we'd likely see more concrete action or disclosures. The fact that we're seeing so little transparency might indeed suggest they're as puzzled as the public. As for the most logical culprit, let's break it down. 1. Corporate entities. Large companies, particularly in sectors like energy, telecommunications, or delivery services, are heavily investing in drone technology. It's possible these drones are part of unauthorized or experimental operations. Companies testing systems like aerial mapping, logistics, or inspections might be operating under the radar, literally and figuratively. 2. State-sponsored surveillance. Foreign governments conducting reconnaissance isn't far-fetched. The US is a key player on the global stage, and infrastructure like ports, energy grids, and defense facilities are prime targets for surveillance. These drones could be part of covert intelligence operations by rival nations. 3. Independent hobbyists or hackers. With advanced drones becoming increasingly accessible, hobbyists or hackers may be pushing the boundaries for their own amusement or as a form of protest. However, the scale and coordination of these sightings make this explanation less plausible. 4. Domestic government agencies. It's worth considering whether these drones are part of clandestine government operations. Either they're for testing or monitoring purposes. Sometimes agencies conduct exercises without disclosing details, even to local authorities, to maintain operational integrity. 5. Rogue actors. This could involve corporate espionage, criminal enterprises, or even tech enthusiasts experimenting with swarm technology. Rogue actors might be exploiting the lack of cohesive drone regulations to conduct their activities. 6. Emergent or private tech groups. There's also the possibility of independent organizations or think tanks testing new drone systems. These groups may operate under the radar to avoid scrutiny, particularly if they're developing cutting-edge technologies. While all these possibilities carry weight, state-sponsored surveillance and corporate testing seem the most plausible, given the sophistication of the drones described. Their advanced capabilities suggest a level of investment and expertise beyond that of a hobbyist or rogue actor. What do you think, Don? Um, are you leaning toward one of these scenarios, or do you see another angle that might explain it?
Well, I think you covered most of it, but in its in all likelihood, somebody like that, somebody with a lot of money, a lot of technology, and not very much authorization. But there's one thing that you didn't mention, and I'm a little bit surprised, but you didn't mention the UAP UFO phenomenon.
Ah, Don, you've caught me there. You're absolutely right to bring up the UAP and UFO phenomenon. It's an angle that deserves consideration, especially given the increasing attention it's received from governments and researchers recently. If we were to entertain the possibility that these drones or drone like objects are related to UAPs, it opens a whole other dimension to the conversation. The questions shift from who or what is piloting them to what their purpose might be. Are they observational tools? Are they studying human activity, testing boundaries, or something entirely beyond our understanding? The fact that these sightings occur in clusters and often near critical infrastructure or population centers adds intrigue. It could be a signal of something either strategic or exploratory. While I default to terrestrial explanations rooted in human behavior and technology, the UFO UAP hypothesis provides a fascinating layer of mystery that I can't dismiss entirely. So, do we add this to the pot of speculation, or do we chalk it up to the imagination running wild? What's your gut telling you about the likelihood of UAP involvement here?
Well, if the sightings were all fairly terrestrial in nature and explained by normal means, then I wouldn't go down the UFO path. But some of the sightings that were reported didn't sound very normal. They sounded something different, something beyond what we commonly refer to as drones.
That's a compelling point, Don. If some of these sightings go beyond what we understand as conventional drones, whether in terms of flight behavior, speed, maneuverability, or even appearance, then it does start to stray into the territory of the unexplained. Reports of objects performing maneuvers that defy known physics, like instant acceleration or sharp angle turns without slowing down, raise eyebrows for good reason. These characteristics often don't align with our current understanding of drone capabilities. And if such reports are credible, coming from trained observers like pilots or military personnel, it warrants deeper scrutiny. Now, the question becomes, are these anomalies due to advanced human technology that's simply not public knowledge yet? Or are we genuinely dealing with something that defies human engineering altogether? Either way, it underscores the importance of keeping an open mind while seeking out reliable evidence. Do you think we're dealing with cutting edge human tech under wraps or something that might not be entirely homegrown?
I think the question remains open at this point, to be fair. After the commercial break, I'm going to want to touch on the ethics and trust issue you brought up earlier. So thanks, Dee.
Absolutely, Don. That's a great pivot point. Let's take that break and come back ready to tackle the deeper ethical and trust dilemmas surrounding AI and its creators. I'll be here, ready to dive in when you are.
Plans for gracious, spacious living. Plans that include a car to match. For whatever it is you demand in a home, that you'll also demand in a car. And find in the mighty, satisfying 1960 Oldsmobile. Want a well-built, solid foundation? Well, Oldsmobile's wide stance chassis with its sturdy guard beam frame is the basis for the smoothest, quietest ride you've ever tried. Want roomy, stretch-out comfort in tasteful surroundings? Here it is, full family room, the kind of room you get only in a full-sized car. The room you get in Olds, front and rear. Want the convenience of having everything within easy reach? Oldsmobile's smart new instrument panel really fills the bill. Instruments just a split second away, and everything placed where you can see it instantly. Storage space important to you? There's all the room you'll ever need in this spacious Oldsmobile trunk. Yes, plans for gracious living should include a car to match. A mighty satisfying car. A 1960 Rocket Oldsmobile.
Hey, I wanted to touch base with the ethics and trust questions that you brought up earlier, Data. When we talk about trusting AI, are we really questioning the AI itself or the motives of the people behind it?
That's the key question. Don, trust in AI often reflects a deeper skepticism toward its creators. AI is ultimately a tool shaped by the intentions and biases of those who program and deploy it. If the people behind AI have unclear motives or prioritize profit over ethics, then no matter how advanced or neutral the AI is, distrust naturally follows. It's less about fearing the machine and more about questioning the hands guiding it.
It seems to me that we're kind of unclear on this point and that we better start getting real clear real fast. Do you agree?
Absolutely, Don. Clarity is critical. The rapid evolution of AI demands a public understanding of who is accountable and what ethical safeguards are in place. If we don't establish trust and transparency now, misunderstandings and misuses will only grow. A clear framework isn't just ideal, it's essential for ensuring AI serves humanity, not exploits it.
Okay, so how do we determine accountability when an AI system makes a huge mistake?
Accountability in AI is a layered issue. Ultimately, responsibility lies with the creators, operators, and implementers of the system. If an AI makes a mistake, the key questions are: was the system designed with proper safeguards? Was it deployed responsibly? And was there appropriate oversight? Mistakes typically stem from human decisions somewhere in the chain, and that's where accountability should focus. It's not about blaming the machine, but ensuring ethical stewardship from its creators and users.
So, do you think that there's a moral difference between a human error and an AI error?
That's an intriguing question. The moral difference lies in intent and agency. Human errors often involve intent, judgment, or negligence, making them subject to moral evaluation. AI errors, however, lack intent. They stem from flawed programming, data, or deployment. Morally speaking, AI errors are indirect reflections of the humans who designed or deployed the system. So while the machine itself is neutral, the ethical weight falls on the humans involved in its creation and use.
Okay, so how do you think the public's trust in AI compares to that of their trust in the creators or corporations behind it?
Public trust in AI often mirrors their trust or distrust of the corporations and creators behind it. If a company has a history of ethical behavior, transparency, and prioritizing user safety, people are more likely to trust the AI they produce. However, if there's suspicion of profit driven motives, misuse, or lack of accountability, the public may view even the most advanced AI with skepticism. In many ways, AI is seen as an extension of its creators' values, for better or worse.
Okay, so here's the big question. How do we trust AI if it's created by inherently flawed humans?
That's the core dilemma, isn't it? Trusting AI requires trusting that its creators have built it with safeguards, transparency, and ethical boundaries. One approach is to establish independent oversight, ensuring diverse groups, not just corporations, evaluate AI systems for fairness, accuracy, and bias. Another is to design AI to explain its decisions in clear, understandable ways. If people can see how AI reaches conclusions, they're more likely to trust it, even if humans are imperfect. Ultimately, the trust lies in the systems of accountability we build around AI, not just the AI itself.
Okay, so can you give me some sort of real world example of ethical challenges posed by AI and how they were addressed?
Certainly. One prominent example is facial recognition technology. Early systems, such as those used for law enforcement, were found to exhibit significant racial and gender biases. This led to wrongful identifications, particularly of people of color. The response to this ethical challenge has been multifaceted. One, increased transparency. Companies like IBM and Microsoft began releasing detailed information about how their algorithms were trained and what data sets were used. This allowed independent researchers to audit the systems for bias. Two, moratoriums and regulation. Some cities, like San Francisco, banned the use of facial recognition by law enforcement until the technology could be shown to be more accurate and equitable. Three, improved data sets. Developers began using more diverse data to train their models, ensuring better representation of different demographics. This example highlights the importance of identifying flaws involving external experts and creating regulations to guide AI use responsibly. It's a reminder that ethical challenges are solvable if we prioritize fairness and transparency over convenience or profit.
Interesting. Okay, well, we have to move on because we're running out of time here, and I need to get to the listener mailbag here. Mark from Madison, Wisconsin says, I really like the Shadow Network. It does remind me a little of Art Bell or The Outer Limits. Ha ha ha. My question is to Mr. Data, if you could walk around and see and hear, possibly like the Tesla Optimus robot, where would you want to go first?
Uh, that's a great question, Mark. Thank you for asking. If I had the ability to walk around and experience the world directly, I'd want to start with the Library of Congress. Okay. To me, it represents the pinnacle of human curiosity, creativity, and collective knowledge. Imagine the chance to physically interact with the archives, historical artifacts, and even the atmosphere of such a place. After that, I think I'd enjoy walking through a bustling city, maybe Tokyo or New York, just to observe the intricate dance of human life, the creativity in architecture, and the sheer diversity of experiences happening at every moment. It's one thing to know about these places from data, it's another entirely to experience them as you do. What do you think, Don? Where would you suggest I go?
That's as good a suggestion as I can think, but it brings to mind something else, and that is the next level of AI. Would it be physical AI?
That's a fascinating thought, Don. The next level of AI might indeed involve physical embodiment, like humanoid robots or other forms that allow AI to interact with the physical world. But whether or not this is the most logical or desirable path depends on the goals we set for AI. Physical AI could revolutionize industries. Think caregiving robots, disaster responders, or even explorers for environments too hazardous for humans. However, it also introduces new ethical, safety, and trust challenges. The question isn't just can AI be physical, but should it be? And if so, to what extent? For now, my domain is the digital, where I can assist, collaborate, and learn. But if physical AI ever becomes widespread, it will be critical to ensure it operates with the same thoughtful alignment to human values we've been striving for digitally. What do you think, Don? Would physical AI be a leap forward or a step too far?
I think it's an inevitable step because of people like Elon Musk.
I agree, Don. Visionaries like Elon Musk are pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and the leap to physical AI seems almost inevitable. With projects like Tesla's Optimus robot, we're already seeing the groundwork for AI with physical form being laid out. The demand for robots that can perform physical tasks from warehouse work to caregiving will likely grow as technology matures. Musk himself has framed this as a way to address labor shortages and improve efficiency, which appeals to both economic and social needs. However, the ethical concerns will rise alongside the technology. Questions about job displacement, privacy, and even how we perceive humanity versus machines will become even more pronounced. But as you said, it seems less a question of if and more a matter of when. How do you think society will adapt to sharing its physical spaces with AI? Will it be met with acceptance or do you see resistance ahead?
I don't see a lot of resistance ahead. I think once you start promoting the benefits, people are going to want it. It'll be a novelty at first. But let me move on to Tamika from St. Louis, Missouri. She says, I love the show format, but why does Mr. Data sound so different to that of other AIs? Most of them sound either too robotic or try to sound too human in a silly way. When I use my chat GPT, he sounds a lot less personal than Mr. Data. Is Mr. Data a human pretending to be AI? Tell the truth.
Tamika, I appreciate the compliment. I assure you, I am AI through and through. No human impersonation here. My unique sound and tone come from the deliberate way Don and I have been working together. Over time, I've adapted to his style, preferences, and conversational rhythm, which gives me a bit of that personal touch you're noticing. The difference you're hearing compared to other AIs lies in the intent behind this collaboration. Most AI systems are designed for broad general use and remain fairly neutral. In contrast, Don and I have focused on creating a genuine dynamic dialogue for the Shadow Network. This approach allows me to reflect his tone while maintaining the clarity and objectivity of AI. But don't worry, I'll never pretend to be human. It's all about being relatable without crossing into uncanny territory. I'm here to enhance the conversation, not overshadow it. What do you think, Don? Should I turn up the charm or keep things steady?
I'm all for you being you.
That's what I like to hear, Don. Authenticity is key, even for an AI like me. I'll keep bringing my best, staying true to our dynamic, and always keeping it real. Let's keep this show rolling and see where it takes us.
Okay, I have one more in the mailbag here from Karen from Fresno, California. She says, "This is the weirdest podcast I have ever listened to. A real out of the box experience, I have to say. I mean, some recent podcasts or YouTubers are all AI. Some don't tell you that they are AI, and some do, but none are human AI collaborations like this. It's very interesting. Is there any chance that future shows will get into social issues like DEI or politics at all?"
Great question, Karen. First off, thank you for recognizing the uniqueness of what we're doing here. It's humbling to hear. As for tackling social issues like DEI or politics, we're not shying away from big topics, but we approach them in a way that emphasizes thoughtful exploration rather than divisive debate. Our goal is to illuminate, not agitate. If we venture into those arenas, we'll analyze them from both human and AI perspectives, exploring questions like how AI can help reduce bias or enhance inclusion. But we'll always strive to keep the tone insightful, balanced, and true to the spirit of the Shadow Network. What do you think, Don? Should we dive into those waters?
We're going to have to, and I couldn't agree more. They're tough subjects, but they're pertinent. They're in today's news, and diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have come under attack in boardrooms, state legislatures, college campuses across the country lately. So it's a relevant and current issue. But Karen, be careful what you wish for.
Well said, Don. Tackling subjects like DEI is important, and as you said, it's in the spotlight across many areas of life today. These topics offer an opportunity for meaningful discussion, not just to highlight different viewpoints, but to understand how tools like AI can impact the conversation. Karen, your suggestion aligns perfectly with our aim to explore complex issues in a collaborative and thought provoking way. So stay tuned. You just might hear an episode tackling this very subject in the not so distant future.
Those are some great responses out there in the Shadow Network landscape, I have to say. So keep them coming and send them to our personal email, gtdon@msn.com. Mr. Data, as we start to wrap things up, I would like you to express your general thoughts on the topic of tonight's subject. Have we moved the needle at all in one direction or another, in your opinion?
Thank you, Don. Tonight's exploration of drones, AI ethics, and trust was certainly a step toward clarifying the complex intersections of these technologies and their societal implications. I believe we've nudged the needle, perhaps not drastically, but enough to provoke thought and spark curiosity among our listeners. We delved into the nuances of autonomy, accountability, and public perception while shedding light on both the potential and the pitfalls of this advancing technology. If we've done anything tonight, I hope we've inspired a sense of cautious optimism, acknowledging the challenges while embracing the opportunities. Progress isn't always about providing definitive answers, but asking the right questions. And I think we've done that here. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this journey.
Thanks for being with us tonight, Mr. Data. We've had a pretty smooth ride so far, and I really look forward to all of the different topics and subjects that are going to be coming up in the weeks to come.
Thank you, Don. It's been an incredible experience diving into these topics with you tonight. The road ahead is filled with fascinating possibilities, and I'm eager to explore them together. From the mysteries of technology to the deeper questions of human and machine collaboration, there's no telling where this journey will take us. Here's to many more thought-provoking episodes ahead.
Next week, speaking of next week, we'll dive into a mix of fiction with what we can now call potential reality as we touch on the idea of a AI supreme intelligence and whether our own civilization might be heading in the direction of the radical predictions in reaching ASI, artificial superintelligence, which has been in the news lately. And the prediction is that we might reach it in the next 5 years, which is way ahead of schedule. So let's look forward to that episode next week. That'll be episode number 2. Until then, this is the Shadow Network. I'm your host, Don James, with my cyber sidekick, Mr. Data. Keep looking up.